from statute and partly from common law, the rules of descent, which we've discussed with Protestant succession and the oath in 1700. Under the Act of Settlement 1700, only Protestant descendants of Princess Sophia, granddaughter of James I, are eligible to succeed. The order of succession to the throne can be altered only by common consent of the countries of the Commonwealth, of which the monarch is sovereign. And it goes on to say these same people are invited over. But talking about my Australian friend again, the Commonwealth is an invented corporation which took over the Australian land, because there is a King of Wales that owns Australian land. Is there not? Are you familiar with that?
King of Wales? No.
That's why the Prince of Wales will never be King of Wales, because that title already exists. Someone already has that. He will be King of England, but he'll never be King of Wales, because Australia already owns it. And what's essentially done is they've created the Commonwealth to circumvent Australian law by taking the land. Because England only had certain prisoner colonies to manage. That's all they had really jurisdiction over. Whereas now they've used this as an instrument to circumvent it. Which is very clever, very clever. Research paper from the government's own site, House of Commons Library. I found this when I was delving last year. The royal marriages and succession to the crown. Again, looking at Protestantism and the monarch, the line of succession follows the hereditary principle of certain restrictions. The crown passes to males ahead of females, which is odd because usually in Arabic law it goes through the females because that's what land is attached to, and dowries and money. And the monarch can neither marry a Catholic. Private Members Bill, introduced by Dr. Evan Harris, who allegedly is an MP, intends to remove the religious requirements of the monarch's spouse and the preference for men in line with succession. Good luck! It ain't going to happen. Not a chance. It would have no effect on the religion of the monarch, but would still be required in the communion with the church. So why even try? I mean, you've got a 1700 law which says you have to be a Protestant. So why are they trying to circumvent an old law like that? The bill will also repeal the Royal Marriages Act, which places certain restrictions on members of the royal family without marrying, without consent. Which is interesting because Prince William is over 25, which is an important part of that act. I'm going to mention this, private Members Bill. What's a private Members Bill? It means it's a personal, private interest. It has nothing to do with the people. It's like, I'm a private company, I'm going to bring a private bill. So it's a personal thing, it's purely for him. It's nothing to do with anything else. So just understand when you see that word, private members, it's not for you, it's for business. It's for him. Page 3 of the same thing. Royal Marriages Act, again this is sourced, this is from his own document. 1772 requires the descendants of George II to seek consent of the monarch before marrying. If the person in question is over 25, they may marry without consent as long as Parliament does not object, which the Parliament don't care. They don't care because they're taking power over the government, over the monarchy anyway, so it makes no difference. Interestingly enough, the Prince is 30 in 2012, so he doesn't need consent. Now whether Kate Middleton is a Catholic, I don't know. I just find it odd that he was dating her and then he wasn't. Did anyone ever find that odd?
And then he was.
And then he was again. So is she a Catholic? Either way, it makes a difference because he doesn't need consent from his mother.
Yeah. Well, if she shits in the woods, we'll know.
Whether the Parliament will do anything, I don't really care because the government's usurping the monarchy anyway. It's basically, it's selling it off, as far as I can make out. From the same thing, company websites. This MP is trained under that name. He's part of the Liberal Democrats Party. One of Nick Clegg's crowd. Just to show you that these people have vested interests, they don't work for you. And just in case you don't think that the House of Commons isn't a business, it is. Nothing these people do are for your benefit, you're paying for all of this. From their own website, parliament.uk, you'll see the address, tallies up the same. And notice the symbol there, you've got the Ben, which is an obelisk. Egyptian by every origin I can imagine, but I don't know what that symbol is. If anyone wants to research what that horseman is, it looks very, I don't know, Roman to me. But what's that doing in front of an obelisk with a Ben stone on top of it?
Isn't it Queen Boadicea or something?
It could well be, yeah. It's Roman anyway, or Greek-Roman, Greco-Roman. I don't know, I've never really looked into it because my head's
Boadicea was
skewed. So.
English.
Yeah, that's right. She
She's
fought the
Welsh.
Romans.
She English, was she?
Yeah.
Well, she's in front of an obelisk there, so she was Scouts. So just note the address is
by
telling.
Romans, that's for sure.
She was from Norfolk.
Norfolk.
Yeah,
But she made a nice.
yeah. They've got a thing about her in Norwich Castle. Nice little film.
Awesome. Here's the important part of what the Queen's system. I mean, we've got statute law, but they've got a different law from how they operate. And it says Salic law regulates succession according to sex, which it does. Agnatic succession means succession to the throne or fief going to the agnate of the predecessor. Agnate is just a branch, it's a familial line. For example, a brother, a son or nearest male relative through the male line, including collateral agnate branches. For example, very distant cousins. Chief forms are agnatic seniority, and the main one, agnatic primogeniture, which the sons of the monarch, which will be Prince William and Prince Harry. The latter, which is the one that's usually used, means succession going to the eldest son of the monarch, which will be Prince William. If the monarch had no sons, the throne would pass to the nearest male agnate in the line. The so-called semi-Salic version, which is in operation today with the king, the succession stipulates that firstly all male branches are applied, including all the male lines, and if all agnates become extinct, which most of them did, if you look into the older Germanic tribes, you had the House of Weimar, Salzburg, Altenburg. As all the families died out, one family was always the more prominent, which was the Queen's line, the House of Guelph, which goes back to the 10th century. So they've exhausted all the lines, and it gets to the point where there's no males left, so it goes to the female. It says that the closest heiress, such as a daughter, which would be the Queen, of the last male holder of the property inherits, and after her own male heirs according to the Salic order. In other words, the female closest to the last incumbent is regarded as a male for purposes of inheritance. This is a pragmatic way of putting order. The female is closest, thus continuing the branch, the longevity of the family, and not involving any more distant relatives. At that order, the original primogeniture is not followed with regard to requisites. So essentially what it says is, as the Queen stands now, she is a king. Anyone who believes she's a queen is misinformed. She has the power of a king through this law, which is their own Salic law. There's two types. So what you have here is Prince Charles and the Queen, but if you give them the proper official titles, he's a prince consort and she is a queen regnant. Now the difference between the prince consort is he knights people. I've seen him knight people. He has no authority, nor has he got the power to do that. Only the queen or the king has the power to knight people. It's called the divine right of kings. Why he does that, I really don't know. But it's maybe to give the impression he has some kind of authority. He hasn't. He has no effective power. She holds all the cards. She is your king by every definition, according to this semi-Salic law. Don't know whether anyone knew this, but I thought I'd throw it out there. Same paper.